Hi guys, it is April from Getting Hookah With It. Today we're going to chat about the top 5 books that I read in spring. So let's get into it. I have had such an amazing reading year. It was hard to come up with this list, and that is a good problem to have. It's a very good problem to have. But I did dwindle it down to 5, and I want to share them with you now. The first is a book that I don't have in physical form. It's called Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow. This is a nonfiction book about Ronan Farrow, who is a journalist, a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist at that, and he essentially heard about Harvey Weinstein and the sexual assault that he committed on so many women in Hollywood. And he was essentially trying to bring this to light. He was working with NBC to begin with. That changed over time, but you follow how the story came out and you learn about how he was followed. And it was just so interesting to hear from him about this. He himself has been affected by sexual assault in his family. He is Woody Allen's son, and he is Mia Farrow's son. He chose the name Farrow because Woody Allen had sexually abused his sister. One of his sisters was adopted and is now married to Woody Allen, which is incredibly problematic. And the other one he is in touch with still, and she was sexually abused by her father. And you can tell that that affected him in how he went about reporting this. He was such an ally to these women, and he wanted to protect them because it's such a brave thing to come out with your assault. It's such a difficult thing, and I just loved him. I fell in love with Ronan Farrow. I just really, really admire him. I'm so grateful that there is a Ronan Farrow out there in the world trying to help women who are being treated so inhumanely. And yeah, so it follows specifically the Harvey Weinstein case. It does dive in a little bit here and there to Matt Lauer. It dives in a little bit with Trump and the accusations that have come against Trump. And I just thought he was amazing in this book. I'm so glad that I read that one. Another book that I absolutely adored reading in the spring was The Lost Orphan by Stacey Halls. This is about a woman in the 1700s, and she has a child out of wedlock, which was very much frowned upon. And she gives up her child to the Foundling Hospital, but this isn't an orphanage. They don't give away their children. They keep the children, raise the children, and eventually when the mother or the parents are able to afford these children, they come and collect their children again. So we follow Bess for 6 years. She has saved up money and she's gotten her life to a certain point where she thinks that she can raise her daughter. And so she goes to the Foundling Hospital and she's ready to meet her daughter, and they tell her that someone has already collected her daughter and that someone was her. So someone has like pretended to be her and gone and collected the child, and you find out what happens. And it was really good. Kind of gothic because there's these mysterious parts in it, and it's dark. Oh, I just adored this book. And yeah, I have the familiars I should say, on my shelves, and I want to read that too. I also really loved Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb. This is nonfiction, and oh, it just made me so happy, this book. This is about a therapist who goes to therapy. She has a breakup with her boyfriend that she did not see coming at all. And she needs to sort through all of those emotions. And so she goes to therapy and she works it out. And of course, when you go to therapy, you're usually going for one thing that you think you need to sort through. And what ends up happening is you realize that there's so much behind it. There's so much more to work through, and you watch her working it through. Honestly, I'd like to reread this book and like with a highlighter, because there were so many lessons in here that could apply to you and me, and I just really, really loved it. It's funny at times as well. I should mention also that you follow her going to therapy, but you also follow her as a therapist dealing with all of these people, and you see her helping other people work through their own stuff and the layers behind it, their issues as well. I just really appreciated her so much, and yeah, just I really recommend that one. Next up is Queenie by Candace Carty-Williams. This is such a remarkable book. This is about a Black woman living in London, and it is about the romantic relationships she gets into during a break that's really a breakup. Like, this guy that she was dating, living with, asked for a break. Everybody, including Queenie, knows that it's really a breakup, but she's holding on to hope. In the meantime, she has sex with a lot of nasty men who are very, very mean to her, and she puts up with it. This also is about a Black woman living in London, so it is about the racism that she encounters and dealing with that. She's such a layered character. She is, I think, the most layered character I've ever read. Like, she felt like a real person. I feel like there is a Queenie out there in the world right now. I feel like she's walking around. And I think I'll think about her for years to come, because I just cared for her so much. Really, really loved it. Oh my gosh. Okay, and the last book that I have to say was absolutely ingenious and heartbreaking and enraging, yeah, but was amazing, was The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. This is about Elwood, who was this Black boy living in the US in the 60s, and it's a short book, but you follow him for about maybe 50 to 70 pages in his life, and you see the kind of boy that he was. And if you don't fall in love with Elwood in those 50 to 70 pages, I don't know what is wrong with you, but I just fell in love with him, and I was so proud of him as a person. I just loved him. And if he was my son, I would just be so proud. And unfortunately, he is a victim of racism, and some bad policemen misinterpret a moment in his life, and they decide that it's important for him to go to the Nickel Academy to be essentially reformed. They call it a school, but it's not a school at all. And there is so much abuse at this school, which was based on a real school that existed in Florida. So these Black boys were sent there, abused. Many of them were murdered. Many of them were neglected to the point where they were so ill that they died. And there's this graveyard that is discovered years later, where all of these Black boys were discarded, and their parents were told that they ran away. They never ran away. They were discarded. And it's like I could cry just talking about this book, because it is so unjust, and it's very angering. It's incredibly angering, but so incredibly important. yeah, I loved every single second of reading The Nickel Boys, even though it was so angering and so frustrating. I think it's important to read it because you need to have those emotions with this kind of racism, um, and this kind of abuse, and it's just horrendous. But it's important to feel all of those emotions, I think, right now. It was always important, but I think everybody needs to be reading things like this right now, and I'm so glad that I read The Nickel Boys. Oh my goodness. Okay, so those were the top 5 books that I read in spring. I would love to know in the comments below, what was the best book that you read in spring? If you can't do best, like, just mention a few that you really loved. It's hard to narrow it down to one. I would love to know what that is for you. In the description box below, I'm getting a lot better at including things like my Goodreads page, my Instagram, my Amazon wish list. I've also got a Patreon page that you can go and check out if you'd like to. And I will talk with you guys soon. Bye!